I'm not really my best self as a creative when I'm not here in Arizona. This is my home and these are my roots, and I feel more inspired by being here. She's like, keep doing what you're doing and don't let anyone ever steal your joy.
Hello, everybody. Today we are in the chair with Shari Rowe. She is an Arizona native, uh, sort of an up-and-coming country singer-songwriter who's open for a number of superstars, including Wynonna Judd and Leanne Rimes. I have a Wynonna Judd story I want to share and see if you had any experiences like that. We're going to talk touring, writing, recording, and more. So thanks, Shari, for joining us here in the chair. Welcome.
I'm so happy to be here. Thanks for having me on, Wiley. Looking forward to chatting.
The first thing I want to talk about is Arizona. I love the idea of artists and their hometowns, or at least where they're from. If you meet a country artist and they're from Nashville, it doesn't put them in a box or anything, but you have things to identify. Okay, it's a Nashville artist, or
Right.
Austin.
Right.
But I don't know that Arizona has like a type or a
Yeah.
thing about it yet. Can you tell me what it's like being an artist?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So we have a great community of people that we collaborate with. I say my husband plays bass in my band, so we met wanting to tour together, and that's what we do. But we've tried, off and on. We've lived in Nashville for short stints, and obviously, being in the industry, that's the hub. But what I have found is I'm not really my best self as a creative when I'm not here in Arizona. I love being in the West. I'm very much inspired by writing or by nature when I write. So these open skies, this feeling of the valley and then the mountains, and growing up riding horses, and this being the true West, I feel very much inspires me. So it's interesting that you ask what type of artist is from Arizona, because I also co-host a radio show called Arizona on the Rise.
Uh-huh.
And we're trying to do just that, spotlight the talent that's right here in our own backyard. So even though I've toured across the country, recording it right in Nashville, this is my home and these are my roots, and I feel more inspired by being here.
That's that's amazing. I grew up in rural West Texas,
Yeah.
which I think scenery wise is similar to at least southern Arizona.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking when you say open sky, I just think sunsets.
Those big skies and all the colors and the saguaros and the red rock. And yeah, it's beautiful. The wild horses, and it's great.
So as you began writing songs and playing out, were you mainly regional in that area?
Yep, yeah, absolutely. Got my start here. I toured for a while with my sister and my sister-in-law. We sang a couple songs in church a while back, and ended up a producer kind of found us, and we started a co-write together, and we did a contemporary Christian project, and we were signed, and we toured with that for a little bit. So I was able to kind of dip my toes in the industry and kind of get to know some people in Nashville, and really learn how to hone my songwriting skills. And so we kind of built that community that way. So when I made the progression to country music, which was natural for me because I grew up hearing it, it was just the backdrop of everything. It was fairly easy to kind of branch out beyond just Arizona and this region because I'd already made so many connections, and everyone has just been so welcoming and, kind of helped me along. So
That's you mentioned being in a band with your husband. My wife is a bassist, and so
nice.
we've been in bands together for 15 years, and
Yeah.
it makes, well, I was going to say it makes life easier. Sometimes not, but most of the time it's great because you have that joint venture, and your schedules don't conflict and stuff.
Exactly. We've never had to say bye, and take off on the road and leave the other one behind. And we've seen the country together. We've seen different parts of the world touring together. And even in the early days, when it's just not paying much, we would just look at each other and, we're playing music, we're seeing the world, and it's been a joy.
Yeah, I think personal relationships, maintaining them is maybe the hardest thing for touring artists.
Hmm.
Whether it's boyfriend or girlfriend back home or a child
Yeah.
or something like that. But gosh, when you can have them in the same place, that sure
Yeah.
removes a lot of those tensions,
Yep, for sure.
which is a great segue into my Wynonna story.
Oh,
Uh,
yes. I want
uh,
to hear this.
I'll just tell the story real quick. I used to
Yeah.
work security at the big arena in Austin in
Hmm.
the 90s. And you get your briefing before the show, and Wynonna's there, and it's sold out. It's a big
Yeah.
show and everything. But we get the security group together, and you guard backstage, side of stage, all these different places.
Right.
And one was Wynonna's bus with her kids.
Oh, wow.
Um, so they got, I was in college then. I was not the right person for that, but they got, one of the older gentlemen who was trustworthy or whatever. And he sat all night on Wynonna's bus with her kids
Amazing.
and just said nothing but wonderful things. And she's an artist that you don't generally hear negative stuff about. What was your experience like? Did you open one show or did you do sort of a stint?
I opened one show with her and she was a joy. I mean, she's obviously someone I've looked up to, her career and with her mom. And like, it's just, they have such a story of survival and perseverance in not only the industry, but life in general. And so they're very inspiring already. And so when you kind of have someone in that place, you hope that when you come in direct contact with them, that they're going to be that person that you hope they are. And honestly, she went above and beyond what I expected. She was so kind. And what's cool about that is her fans are just as kind. So when we did our opening set, I'm doing my thing, but I'm pushing that she's coming out because I'm excited too. But her fans really embraced my music too, and they just celebrated me being there, and they knew how special it was for me. And I think that's a reflection of her, on her. And then afterwards, of course, getting to know her and getting pictures, and I'm trying to be really respectful of her time, so I kind of lean in for a photo and kind of duck out real quick. And she pulled me back in, and she whispered in my ear, and she's like, us girls got to stick together. She's like, keep doing what you're doing and don't let anyone ever steal your joy. And she's just a beautiful person. Everything that she conveys on stage is what she's pouring out into people off stage. So it was great.
That's great. One of the reasons I love doing this interview series is to hear stories like that of talking to death metal bands about when they opened
Yeah.
for Slayer or whatever,
Yeah.
and hearing those stories of because you hear plenty of negative about everybody
Yeah.
famous in the world. So it's
Sure.
great to hear these first person accounts
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
exchanges. So you talked about your transition from country music to or from Christian to country music.
Yeah.
What about songwriting? How much of your songs do you write?
Yeah.
And where do you get the inspiration to write, both lyrically and musically?
Well, I write or co-write pretty much everything that I put out. I've put out one song that I didn't write. That was Beach Town. I loved it. If I'm going to put out something that I didn't write, it really has to feel like maybe I did write it. I really have to resonate with it. I love the songwriting process, to be honest. When I go to Nashville or anywhere where there are country music artists or celebrities, I'm always looking for the songwriters. I'm looking for Natalie Hemby and Sean McConnell and Brett Cherokee and these guys who have written these big hits, and they're artists in their own right for sure. But I'm just so fascinated with the process of songwriting, and I love the co-write atmosphere. I love the energy in that room, especially when you've built a relationship with your co-writers and everyone feels really safe to kind of just be vulnerable and throw every idea out there, even if it might just flop and no one's thinking about it. You just move on, right? But the magic happens and you can feel it. And I love the progression of hearing that song in its rawest form, maybe when you finally got all those lyrics moved around and you have that rough demo on your phone and you know that it's already good. And because from there, it just takes a village of like, it's going to go through producer and all the great players and everybody chiming in for parts and making moments. And I love the writing process.
That's that's really cool. Have you had a song where you've you've written it and you get out the thoughts for it and it takes a shape and you just think, meh. but then it resonates with fans much more than you would have imagined.
I think so. I mean, it's hard to say. I haven't really, I have a relationship with each song that I've written, and they're special for, different reasons. But obviously, there are some where maybe if I could go back again, I would, produce it differently, or I kind of wish the tempo were different, or if my vocal capture, I felt like I could have conveyed more emotion. So I'm always nitpicking myself, but um, there are those songs that just really hit with an audience, and one of them is The Heavy, and I do love the way that song was captured, but I couldn't have anticipated how much it would move people. And I'm finding more and more that as I write more songs, as I learn more about myself, the more vulnerable we can be and the more authentic we can be, obviously, that's going to hit with people more than anything. And I think that's why that song hit so hard. It was, or hit so well. It's really about how we all go through something. At any given time, you could be in a room and anyone around you is dealing with their own stuff. And even the smallest thing we can do, a kind word or even going above and beyond that, but there's always something we can do to help one another. And I think we're all more alike than we are different. And people found themselves in that song, and that's what you want ultimately.
That's a very powerful message for today.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, I think we all need to hear that sometimes. It's like having empathy and compassion for the whole room around you, really.
that's fantastic. I feel like songwriters, you have the kind of rare exception that 18 to 20-year-old who writes a song and it sells a million records. That's
Yeah.
kind of a different thing. But I
Yeah.
feel like most other songwriters, early on, you tend to try to write what they think people will like. And then
Mm.
after you kind of get that phase out of the way, you get into writing what you like and what
Yeah.
matters to you. And that's when the authenticity comes out
Yeah.
and fans get to like you, not you
Cool.
trying to sound, other ways. I think that's fascinating.
I think you hit the nail on the head, and that's the exact season that I'm in right now, is realizing that there's an audience for each artist, and we can learn from those who've gone before us and what may be trending, and those are all things to consider, but they're not the things that should ultimately shape us.
I've always been fascinated by bands who, at the beginning of a long bill, sometimes there's a competitive atmosphere. I'm better than them, or our music. And it's so much more enjoyable when you see yourselves, whether it's a bill or a festival or whatever,
Sure.
you see yourselves as different ingredients in this great big dish.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, great analogy for sure.
Yeah, because you need your artists that are maybe more raw and unfiltered, and then
Yeah,
you need pleasant sounds, and you need fun dance moments,
for sure.
regardless of the genre you're watching.
Yep, exactly.
So you have toured a lot. In one of your bios, it mentions your tour of Poland.
Yeah.
Do you have, from a musician's perspective, a favorite part of the world or favorite venues that
Yeah.
you found over the years?
Poland is high up there. I am Polish. My grandparents were born and raised in Poland and came over, and so I didn't know them. They passed when my mom was young, but that's a big part of my history, and that isn't why we went there. We ended up going there, and I was like, this is amazing. I felt so comfortable there. The foods, the language, all of that, the culture, I saw so much of that growing up, and they love country music. So I think it was interesting that once they knew that that was my heritage, I think there was even more of an open door there. And they dance, they celebrate, they love the shows. They were so enthusiastic about all of it. And I mean, not to mention, we played in castles. We played, we went to a couple royal balls. It was just one of these situations that was. We've been there twice so far. We're going again next year. It was fascinating. We played at the Blue Note in Poznan, which is a famous jazz club, actually. It's world renowned, and it's in the basement of a castle. So I'd say that was probably one of my favorites.
Just go play that gig once a year and
Yeah,
the heck
yeah.
with everything else.
Right. I know. I know. Eat some pierogi. Yeah, I'm good.
If your drummer comes down with a cold, call me. That's
Yep, all right. Yep, I got
a
it.
great gig to jump in on. I wanted to ask you because as I'm listening to your music, you're a good songwriter. You write just you send messages in your music that matter, but sometimes it's fun and sometimes there's a frivolity to it. One of the quotes, and I love press quotes. You know which one?
I'm not sure. Let's see.
About your song last time, the "Oops, I Did It Again" of country.
Okay, I did think it was that one. Yeah.
So as a writer of things that go into the media, I
Yeah.
love that. Like, oh wow, that could either land or be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Could you talk about when you read that? How
I
do you
loved
feel?
it. I definitely giggled. I feel like that I took that as a compliment for sure. Culturally relevant and just yeah. I mean, we did the whole photo shoot and the whole campaign with that song was very 90s inspired and bright pink and yellow and blue and Willie Morrison and I wrote that and I remember that day we went through a couple different ideas and the first thing we started off with wasn't kind of a fun thing, it was a little more serious and then we started writing this idea and we were both kind of laughing and it just turned into this crazy over the top story, real tongue in cheek and taking chances and that's the last time I'll do that. But you almost feel like this person is saying, well, maybe that's the last time. That's obviously a person who's taken a lot of chances. And I always imagined if I did a music video that there would be an additional storyline at the very end where she actually gets married in Vegas when she's out there. So we haven't done a music video yet. I don't know if it'll happen, but I would love to do a whole 90s, just over the top kind of Shania, Britney, just crazy kind of scene.
Oh my gosh, that would be fantastic.
That'd be
Um,
fun.
no, I write a lot of reviews and artists tend to want, they want one line to put
Yeah.
on a poster or whatever. And it's as a writer, it's really weird to try and you write your feelings. And I guess it's
Yeah.
like this with the songwriter, maybe the hook of your song.
Yeah.
You have a whole message and you think, well, what are the 5 words that people are going to remember from this?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Because yeah, it defines a greater work.
Mhm.
And sometimes that's great.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, I want to talk a little bit about what you have coming up.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm looking. You've got thousands and thousands and thousands of streams on Spotify. You have music out there. But what's new in your camp?
I've been writing like crazy. So I'm excited because, I love everything that I've put out, but hopefully, as an artist, we're growing and evolving and I feel like this season for me, the last couple of years, that same theme that we were talking about, that authenticity, kind of setting us, not completely setting aside what is happening in music and not setting aside the trends, but really kind of digging deeper into what I want to say, how I want to say it. Between the last time I released a single and now, I had the privilege of co-writing and co-producing an EP for my fiddle player, who's also a singer-songwriter. He's, I would say, indie rock Americana. And he invited me into this project. And it was the first time that I had been so immersed and really, I had a really big role in writing that with him. And I found that I was able to put words to his story in a more vulnerable way than I was with my own. And so after I did that, I kind of brought that back to my own writing. And I kind of tried to remove myself a little bit so that I could let myself be more vulnerable. And that's what I've been honing in on. And that combined with going through some tough stuff in life, I've got these songs now that I'm getting ready to put out. The first single is going to be out at the end of summer. It's called Too Good to Go. And it's really just about life being so beautiful and I don't want to miss it. And had a health scare, and unfortunately, we lost our mom a year ago. And we all go through things in life, and there are ups and downs. And I've got some fun, roll down the windows kind of songs on here too. But it's those deep moments, and I've found a way to say them in a more authentic way, I think. And also musically, I'm more in the producer seat than I've ever been. So I'm really looking forward to kind of bringing in some indie Americana flavors of the music that I like. I love country music, but I also listen to, Lord Huron and Gregory Alan Isaacoff and Andy Schaaf and, the Birdie Brothers or Broody Brothers. So I'm looking forward to kind of letting everyone kind of see what's been going on up here.
And that's going to be Too Good to Go is going to be on an EP, or are you doing?
Yeah, it'll be the first single of five or six that we've got ready now. So I'm excited about that.
So speaking of that, are you doing the approach? I feel like a lot of artists now, I mean, gone are the days if you put out a 10-song album and release three singles over.
Yeah.
Are you doing the approach of release a single, release a single, release a single? Hey, there's the EP.
Yeah, this time I am. And, I have been just releasing singles. I did have one EP. I had a full length one a while back, but this one I'm building an EP. I want these songs connect with each other, and I missed that. I missed that process. So even though I think it's really important to drop singles, I want everyone to understand the whole story by the time everything's out.
I think that's a challenge these days, and a good challenge.
Yeah.
I think many of us miss purchasing a physical thing and listening
Mhm.
to it, for the next half hour
Yeah.
and absorbing it. And you do have your smash hits and maybe your filler tracks or whatever,
Yeah.
but man, the days where the song that isn't released as a single, you really gravitate toward, or you get to share it with
Yeah,
friends or
right. I know
whatever.
that the deep cuts, the album cuts. Yeah.
Exactly. No, I think that might be the challenge for artists right now is
Yeah.
releasing a whole work that you have fans, you try to get them to appreciate it as a whole work.
Hmm. Yeah, Brett Cherokee, he just released a full-length album, and I was very inspired by when it came out. I sent him a message because I just love the whole project, and it's called Rock, Paper, Scissors, and it's so interesting because he's written for big hitters in country music, and this is his first full-length album of his own work. But it's called Rock, Paper, Scissors because he's been told over and over in the industry, you got to know who you are and stay in your lane and don't veer off of that. And he said, well, I have a few different sides of myself, and these songs need to be written and released. So the first five songs are rock songs. And then the next five, paper, it's the ones that are more commercial and look good on paper. And then the last five, scissors, those are the ones that just cut out your heart. So he put all of them on there. He says, this is me, rock, paper, scissors. And I sent him a message, and he messaged me back, and he's like, I guarantee you, if you write what you feel is you, there's an audience for you. So we're just on that theme.
Oh my God. I mean, that it makes so much sense because as humans, throughout the day, you're happy, you're sad, you're pissed
Yeah,
off at something.
exactly. Yeah.
Oh, you need a soundtrack for all that stuff.
Yes.
That's fantastic. With your can you talk a little bit about your radio show, just
Yeah.
to get away from music? Uh,
Yeah.
so
So
highlighting mostly Arizona talent.
it is. It's all Arizona talent,
Okay.
in fact. So 96.3 here in Arizona has been around for, gosh, I want to say at least 30 years. They've got a huge audience here in Arizona, but their streaming audience is even bigger. They're listened to across the world, and they really represent Arizona real country music, the kind of the throwback kind of stuff, and even the new stuff that sounds like throwback. That's kind of their niche. And my manager, actually, Dennis Petty, went to the station owner and he said, I'm really passionate about shining a light on Arizona artists. And what do you think about a radio show where we highlight that? And Mike said, actually, I've been wanting to do that for a while. I just can't add that to my plate. So he gave us the 1 hour block every Sunday night at 7 p.m. And I host it along with my manager and his wife, Diana, and my husband, Kevin, produces the show. And each week we feature an Arizona artist and we play about six of their songs and then about six songs from artists that they've been inspired by in their career or opened for or have a story about. And in between, we get to know them. And it's been a big hit. We're into our sixth month. And it's been amazing because I meet a lot of Arizona artists being from here. And maybe we're at a festival and we're kind of shaking hands as we're going on and off stage. But to actually hear their story and learn about their journey and give them a platform and kind of a way into radio and getting more exposure, it's been a privilege to be able to do that for them.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I've been in Austin now for decades, and there's been a show on the big rock station here on KLBJ called Local Licks, and it's tended to be every Sunday night in the same time slot, but it
Yeah,
is the every now and then the bigger stations would throw in an Austin band, and that's
yeah,
just not how radio works most of the
right.
time these days. But yeah, for 1 hour a week, you can turn on the station and hear
Yeah,
bands that you've never heard before, or hear bands that you've seen a million times and hear their new stuff or hear them perform acoustically or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
And the community loves it. They grab onto it because they're like, oh, I can go over to, whether venues here, Foley Ranch or wherever, and you realize that there's live music in your own backyard. Now you're in Austin and it's a music town. Arizona was once known as a music scene, but it really hasn't been known for that lately. So we're starting to change that, and we're having songwriter nights that are based on these artists from the show, and it's really cool to kind of fan the flame and facilitate that.
yeah. You've been really good about saying Arizona music, Arizona music. Is this more, are you in the Phoenix area or Tucson or Flagstaff, or are you try to reach out and really cover the entire state?
We have had artists all the way from way up north in Flag and down in Tucson. We've had artists from all over the state on the show for sure. So, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. It's very important to keep that alive. That's
Yeah.
those little ponds are sort of, it seems like they've been drying up for a while, but
I know.
I think there's sort of an upswell of no, let's get back to more organic music. Um,
I agree. I'm seeing the same trend for sure.
yeah, people aren't wanting to listen to AI's top 40.
No, no, they are not.
So one question I like to ask, it's typically country Americana artists. You mentioned you've been in and out of Nashville from time to time. Have you gotten the pleasure of going to the Bluebird Cafe?
I was there to hear Natalie Hemby. So I haven't played there yet, but Steve Mokler was there and Natalie Hemby, and I mean, it's such a magical experience.
Okay. I'm waiting for somebody to say, I didn't think it was that special.
Oh man, I don't know if that's ever gonna happen. It is just the magic of a writer's round is thankfully we're seeing those everywhere. You mean you go to Nashville, it's happening in every building pretty much. But yeah, the Bluebird, that's a special place. I feel like
Yeah,
yeah, not very many venues can top that one.
yeah. I think what's really fun about it, I think every city has its listening room place where
Mhm.
whatever night of the week it is, you'll hear something enjoyable and
Wow.
thought provoking. Um,
Yeah.
to me, the big difference at the Bluebird is that song was thought provoking, and they co-wrote hits for the 10 people.
Right. Yes, yes, indeed. It's cool to kind of hear the original versions. Like Riser, for instance, Dirk Bentley had a big hit, Riser. Steve Mokler actually wrote that and he performed it that night at the Bluebird. And it's always fascinating for me to hear the songwriter's version. Because like a song can have a whole different feel and take on a different meaning even. And both are great versions, but I'm always fascinated by that.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes or usually it's the producer saying, "Oh, we need to sharpen this up or liven up
Yeah.
that chorus or whatever." Uh,
Yeah. Yeah, you can have a very commercial version, and then you can have more of the indie singer-songwriter kind of, which both are great.
That's fantastic. I really enjoyed the visit. I wanted to cover your touring and your songwriting, and your radio hosting. You have the new single coming out and an EP coming out later this year. Do you have other projects? Are you planning touring anytime soon? Will I see your name on a marquee in Austin in the next year or so?
Lord willing and the creek don't rise, yeah, as they say. But I hope so. I've through D Dallas and different parts of Texas, doing radio tours and on TV and stuff like that. But we're building mini tours, and that's the goal at this point. We're reaching out into areas where maybe I've had radio play, but I haven't actually done a show. So that's where I really want to go. If you have fans somewhere and people know your music, you got to go there and meet the fans. So that's the plan, and Austin is on the list for sure.
That's awesome. The last thing I want to do is ask you a question. It's going to kind of put you on the spot, but
Okay.
I picked this up from a sports talk radio show here in Austin where
Yeah,
where they do a completely different segment talking to actors or writers or comedians. And at
yeah.
the end of the interview, they ask you in this case, who would be a good fit for this interview? Who do you think is like, they don't get enough attention or
Oh
man, their
man.
story should be told. Do you
That's
have any?
yeah, that's great. Well, gosh, an Arizona artist comes to mind, Rob West.
Uh-huh.
Rob West is extremely talented and has a great story and an amazing voice, and he's a great songwriter. And his career has taken off, and he's also got a podcast and a brand, a clothing brand, and he was a golf pro, and now he's a country artist, and he's got this amazing story. So Rob West definitely should be on the show.
I'm absolutely going to reach out to Rob and say,
Yeah,
Sherry sent me.
yeah, do it. You won't
Well,
be disappointed.
well, great. Sherry, it's been fantastic visiting with you. I'm glad you made time. I appreciate your time. Uh, Good luck with getting the new singles out. I'm
Thank
excited to
you.
hear uh, everything you've got going on, and I always follow all the socials of the artists I talk to, so I'll
Yeah.
be looking for an Austin date. All
Amazing. I look forward to meeting you in person at some point. Thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it.
right, thank you. Have a good one.